Have you ever spent a lifetime seeking an answer, only to be silenced completely by a single word? In a noisy world of theories, teachings, and debates, there is a place where the way reveals itself, as clearly as sunlight piercing straight into the heart, in silence. This is not Buddhism as you think you know it. No sermons, no clamations, only a single arrow from wordlessness, piercing where you still clinging. And if you dare to stay still, you glimpse a light that no name has ever touched. This gate does not open through knowledge, but in the moment you stop needing to ask anything at all. Watch, listen, but most of all, feel, as if this story is unfolding inside you. Blue record, Zen Koans. Does a dog have Buddha nature? No, also known as Zhao Smooth author. One Vikep had once wandered with a pack of questioning dogs and a single no cut through all. The greatest question from a sincere heart. Among asked Master Zhao, does a dog have Buddha nature? Drawing from the Nirvana Sutra, all sentient beings possess Buddha nature. Zhao replied, no, mu. Hi, a single no. Lie a bullet that severs a lifetime of seeking truth through thought? No. Does the master reject the sutras? Reject compassion? No. He wrecks nothing. He simply cuts off the hand that clutches onto ideas, mistaking them for the way. The moment you ask yes or no, you are already outside the way. One word mu shatters that dividing mind right there. No, I had not a negation. Butte a gate that denies a no rising thought. The instant you think, does it have Buddha nature? You are already standing in duality. No is the bullet that severs that stance. And if you are caught, but do not flinch, then through that fracture, light may enter. When I once wanted to believe in yes, and they feared no. Now I just sit with the question, without naming it. I once craved certainty. I wanted to understand. I wanted to see the way as something on the yes side. But this no dropped all my knowing to the ground. Now I ask nothing. I answer nothing. I simply observe and see. When there's nothing left to believe, the mind has nothing left to veil but her nature. And in that moment, dog, human grass, or shine alike. A verse oza those say ute by no, iete do not abandon the way. No is not to make you turn away, but to strip away the one Vikep hat thinks they are already walking the path. One Vikep hat takes no as denial, has never entered the Zen hall. One Vikep hat hears no, and all logic collapses, yet still chooses to stay seated. That one is already stepping in. One word mu is a charmer teaching no one can finish, but whoever can sit still in it will no longer need any more words. Zen Koans, the flag flutters, Butte Vikep hat moves. Author one Vikep hat once stood before a flapping banner, thinking the wind was to blame until he realized it was his own mind, constantly in motion. A brief tale, lie a memory of seeing you once forgot. One day, two monks stood at the monastery gate. The wind blew. A flag fluttered atop the pole. The first monk said, the wind moves. The second said, no, the flag moves. They argued without conclusion. Master Huning overheard and said, not the wind, not the flag. Your minds are moving. High one sentence, lie a bullet striking through what you thought you had ever kept. An ordinary person sees the flag flutter and says the wind is blowing, or sees motion and thinks the object moves. A spiritual seeker might reason, motion is the form, stillness is the essence. But Huning cuts through both. Everything you see fluttering, still, wind, object, all arise from the mind of discrimination. It is the mind that sees and splits that is the root of movement. But when the mind stills, everything moves. Butte you no longer drag with it. If you truly still, you still see the flag flutter, still see people pass, still hear someone gone. But you won't be swayed. You won't lift your head because you lie, no turn away because you did lie. And in that moment, the flag still flutters, the wind still blows, but you are no longer the one torn from your roots by the breeze. When I once argued over very small things, I used to strive to win, whose opinion was sharper, whose words struck deeper. whose practice was more profound. And every time, even when I won, I was exhausted. Then one day, I watched the flag flare so beautifully without needing to think anything. And I knew, not the flag, not the wind, just my mind, no longer being pulled. Về, a verb order the one về kept hat or finally stand still in the wind and a day I et they swept away. The wind is not wrong. The flag holds no fault. It is the mind accustomed to being stirred. Once you realize, it is I vike hat or move, not the world. A lifetime of judge lips quietly from your brow. No need to stop the flag, no need to still the wind. Only one thing must still yourself. Those ve kept hat or argue wind and flag are those ve kept hat or they never paused to ask. Ve kept hat or sees it flutter. The one ve kept hat or stops needs no answer. For whether it moves or not, it can no longer pull them away from the fullness of knowing. Zen Koan, neither mine, Rabucha, no other thing author. One ve kept hat or once named everything he saw until one day he sat still, called nothing and knew. Essence never lived in words. I a question, where each word I add a chain. A monk asked Master Bajan, what is Buddha? The master reply, not mine, Buddha, not a thing, Fei Xin Fei Fo Fei Wu. 3 words severing all labels. Hai mine, the last refuge ep aura those seeking the way. When people say Buddha is within the mind, they believe they re close to the path, but what they call mind is thought, is intellect, is emotion, is filtered perception. The master cut straight through, not mine, Buddha, a shadow cast by the longing to reach. When a seeker asks, what is Buddha? They've already built an image to chase, but to chase is to stray. To become Buddha is to lose the Buddha already here. The master cleaves once more, not Buddha. Thing, every name form that had at lost, they at freedom. Since birth, we've been taught to name the world, then cling to the names, until we can no longer see what simply is. The master smashes it all, not a thing. Ve, it at none of these then what I at it. The listener asked, if it is not mine, not Buddha, not a thing then what? It is the very one asking the question. But before the question formed, there was something present, free up even the faintest shadow of thought. I once wanted to know what I at Buddha. Now I only need to drop one word to it in peace. I used to say, this mind is luminous, this Dharma is profound, this realization is true. Then one day, I stopped naming. I just sat present softly breathing. No need to call the moment anything. And I knew, not mine, not Buddha, not thing. Yet it is clearer than any word I've ever written. By a verse ep oza those standing at the crossroads. To name oza not to name. A mind with names is delusion. A Buddha you think up is already a statue. A thing you compare is a veil over what is. Want to see, stop defining. Want to enter, stop stepping. Want to attain, first lose everything. And in the moment you stop saying, I am practicing, the Dharma Bodhi sits quietly as if it had never left you. What is Buddha? If you still want to answer, you re outside the gate. If you stop asking and simply are, you have stepped in without leaving a single footprint. Zen Koan, a question that never left the throat. Author. One V kept had O once tried to say so much, then one day sat before someone V kept. Had O said nothing and knew he had just heard what he'd been seeking all his life. I a young monk. A deep question. And there one moment of silence. There was a young monk, carrying a very deep question. Not about Buddha. Not about any method. Just a wound nameless, wordless. He came to the Zen master, knelt down, opened his mouth, and could speak, not from fear, not from lack of words, but because in his throat something caught, like a wind that carried no voice. Hi, the master they did not wait, they did not help, they did not avekepaka enter him. The master looked at him, did not urge, did not encourage, just sat breathing gently, as if this silence itself was the fullest teaching. The monk wept, not from emotion, but from realization. The question did need to be voiced. The Dharma was already present in this silence no one could fake. The unspoken question, I at closest to true wordless knowing. Sing childhood, we will learn to ask to understand, to ask to claim knowledge, to ask to construct an identity of one web hat or seeks the way. But sometimes, before the question leaves the lips, we are closest to true knowing. Because it hasn't yet been blurred by language, the Dharma needs no words. A sincere question left unspoken is like a temple bell that summons Buddha, not through bronze, but through pure no thought. Bon ITO have had a day questions I never spoke. I once prepared to ask my teacher, what am I alive for? Why does sorrow linger, even after I understand impermanence? Where is Buddha nature within me? But when I met the teacher, I just sat, said nothing. The teacher gave no answer, no glance, no chant, and I knew the question had dissolved, and in the soundless space, I was hearing with a sense I never studied. A verse eposer the one vi kept hat o swaus a question, another still hears the teaching. One vi kept hat o hasn't spoken yet whose heart has opened. Needs nothing more to be said. The Dharma does not pass through the throat. It only needs to pass through the layer of wanting to know. If even once you sit without needing to speak, then once you've spoken a full sutra, without ever writing a word, no one might hear your question. But if you truly rest in it, someone beside you will hear the sound up the way. From a place beyond all language, Zen Koans. A bird flies across the sky, leaving no trace. Author. One Vekephato once recorded every moment of transformation until one day, watching a bird in flight, he understood. The brightest light leaves nothing behind. A poetic image that shatters a lifetime of wanting to leave a mark. Zen Master Sufeng said to his disciple, like a bird flying through the sky, it leaves no trace behind. No explanation, no examples, no further instruction. Just a single breath-like sentence. And for one with a true heart, it is a koan greater than the entire canon. To lie and know they still wish to leave something I to be unfree. We often record our progress on the path, hold on to deep meditation experiences, say small enlightenments from yesterday. All of this is the burst shadow. But the one way kept hat o truly flies is already gone. If you still think, I have flown, I have awakened, I have stepped forward, then you are not yet aborn. Bah, the bird does not wonder, do I cast a beautiful shadow? The bird practices no morality. It does not think I should leave a noble example. It does not fly for praise. It simply flies, because flight is its nature. And when it flies, the sky does not make a record. The wind holds no imprint. Only the watcher tries to preserve it in memory. I once wanted everyone to know how I had a day practiced. I used to document my meditation journey. Mark the milestones. Think if someone asks one day, I tell them. Then one day, I watched a bird fly. It left no sound, no feather, no shadow, only a region of light unnamed settling into my quiet heart. And I knew that bird just passed through my entire life, without needing a single word to prove it. A verse eposer the one vid kept hat o spewed down the pen no longer needing to capture beauty. One vid kept hat o lives deeply needs no title. One vid kept hat o flies and yet others feel light from their presence. Is one vid kept hat o tried to leave nothing at all. The sky never kept the bird's shadow. The way never needed documentation. Only those still hungry for praise wish for light to carry their signature. Don't ask, how far have I flown? Instead ask, is there still anything I've left behind that keeps me from feeling weightless? Zen Koans, one word spoken, 10 years of silence. Author. One Vikephato once spoke with eloquence until one day, after saying something, saw the listener fall silent with tears. And since then, no longer wished to explain anything. A question, a response, and the beginning of silence. Among asked the Zen master, "What is the way?" The master looked directly. No lecture, no parable, no struck quote, just one sentence. Simple, true. And it struck right at the place in the seeker's heart that wasn't ready. The monk's face changed. He bowed, withdrew. From that day on, he did not speak for 10 years. That word was not to strike to silence the mind that longed to speak. Why did one sentence make him fall silent? It wasn't insult. It was rejection. It was because he came face to face with something he wasn't ready to see. And once seen, every word that followed felt unnecessary. The day had a drama does not exist to answer questions beauty to halt the mind that questions. Those we had or haven't seen will think that sentence was correct, but those we had or have sat long enough, we know that word was correct. It was simply accurate at the exact spot where I was about to keep speaking, and it stopped me not with logic but with flame. When I once spoke very well, then one day I watched someone fall silent after my words. I once taught, I once answered, I once explained skillfully. Then one day, someone asked me something real. I reply, logically, accurately. They bow, said nothing, and never returned. I felt no joy in that answer, because I knew I had spoken a truth, but failed to hold the heart that was waiting to be heard. From that day, I no longer answered in the same way. A verse or the one kept once escaped there or kept no words. A word if it silences someone for 10 years might not be wrong, but it may not be the way. True Dhamma does not make people silent out of pain, but silent because they see nothing more needs to be said. If your words make another quiet and their heart feels light, you have touched the Dhamma. But if they fall silent and you feel emptiness, perhaps it is time to say nothing at all. Some words are not cruel, but they could, not because they are wrong, but because they lead someone to no longer dare step toward that light again. Zen Koans 7. Master Giao VKEP among chanting, id not bo VKEP. Author. One VKEP once chanted many sutras, then one day walked past a Zen master and was stunned by the eyes that neither nodded nor turned away. A story of someone doing good ute not eate truly present. A monk chanted sutras every morning, sat upright, voice steady, words clear, hands unwavering, eyes focused. One day Master Giao walked by. He did not pause, did not bow, did not greet. The monk, surprised, asked, "Master, I was chanting sutras, why did you not acknowledge me?" The master did not criticize, he simply asked back. Giao replied, "VKEP you chanting for?" The monk said, "For myself." The master responded, "Then if I'm not yourself, why would I bow?" And he walked on, leaving behind nothing but a deeper question in the monk's chest. Why do I chant if it no longer matters? VKEP hears. The one VKEP chants may not be truly there. Everyone assumes chanting is practice. But if you chant just to complete the session, to earn praise for diligence, to be called a vessel of Dhamma, then perhaps your voice rings out, but your heart left after the second line. If no one is present inside each syllable, then that sound is empty. It moves no heart, not even your own. Born, I once wanted everyone to know how well I chanted. I once chanted diligently, loudly, precisely. But one day, I chanted alone. No one noticed. No one kept score. No one praised. I felt empty. And I knew. I saw I was not chanting for the sutra. I was chanting to be acknowledged. A verse episode, the one Kako just finished the sutra and still felt empty. To chant not for so. To chant not to prove. If you chant and the person beside you doesn't bow, yet you remain unmoved, only then is it true chanting. But if a single odd glance leaves you unsettled, then your chant is just a poetic mask for ego. One Vikep had o chants with no listener, yet still chants because not chanting would leave their heart incomplete, needs no greeting, because in every breath, they are already bowing to the Dharma itself. Zen Koan, a casual word, a lifetime of awakening. Author. One Vikep Hatto once tried to speak with wisdom until one day, he said something in passing, and someone truly awakened. Since then, he no longer calls any word insignificant. No sermon, no stick, no shout, just a passing comment. An old Zen master walked through the kitchen, saw a young novice fumbling with the fire. The charcoal was wet, the firewood catch. The master didn't lecture, he'd scold. He simply said, "The fire won't burn because you keep fanning before you see the wreck glow." Then he walked on. Without looking back, the novice heard it, "Anode could they sleep ep over 3 nights." He didn't know why. The words wouldn't leave him. It burns when it's red enough, but I always rush. Maybe that's true in everything. He felt quiet, couldn't chant sutras, couldn't meditate. He just kept hearing that sentence, as if it was never about the fire at all. By later, the novice became as inner master. Anode, when asked what the Hatarama, he only smiled. People asked, "What koan enlightened you?" He replied, "A casual remark, not meant to teach, but it landed right when I was tired enough to stop resisting." Bon what the Hatarama, a word without intent that hits home. The Dharma isn't always in temple bells. It doesn't need to be bound in sutras. Sometimes it lives in a sentence, spoken without agenda. Just when the listener's ego has finally cracked open, the sentence isn't clever, isn't profound, isn't even explained, but it lands like a drop of water into soil that's been dry for years. Where I once spoke an ordinary sentence, Anode someone wept. I didn't plan it. I just said, "You don't have to push so hard. If it hurts, it is okay to rest." They bowed, said nothing. That night, they messaged me. That sentence saved me from one last painful breath. Since then, I don't speak so freely anymore, because I learn the Dharma needs no script. It only needs to fall at the right moment, from a mouth that wasn't trying. Saw a verse ep over the one touched by an unintended word. Not every explanation is the Dharma. Sometimes a word spoken while washing your hands or tying a shoe melts years of weight in another's heart. The Dharma is when the speaker no longer tries to get it right, and the listener stops trying to understand. One may ask about the way and get nothing. Another may suffer, then hear a stray comment, and let go of 10 years of tightening. Because that word was never a teaching. It was simply truth falling at the right time. Zen Koans, the bell rings. A sound emerges. Vikep had o hearing it. Author. One Vikep had used to wait for the temple bell to settle the mind, until one day, he heard a sound struck by no one and the heart came to stillness. A question in the main hall that no one could answer. One morning, the Zen master asked the assembly. Someone strikes the bell. A sound arises. Vikep had is hearing it. No one responded. Some said, "I am." Others said, "It is the nature of mind that hears." Some quoted sutras. The Dharma body has no ears, yet receives sound. The master shook his head. Not wrong yet not right. Because if it were right, why do I still hear restlessness in your answers? Hearing, not the air receiving sound. Beute, the formless mind touching the soundless. The bell's sound is only the condition. What hears it is not inside the ear. When you don't analyze, don't compare, don't judge the sound as pleasant, sharp, deep or shallow, then hearing itself appears. But the moment you say I'm hearing, you've already shifted into concept. You're no longer hearing with the empty mind. The bell ring, beute, when no one hears, The day Hat Azamea reveals itself. Many listen, yet never truly hear a single sound. Because the moment it arises, the mind compares, comments, memorizes, seeks stillness. So the bell fades, but restlessness remains. The true listener is one to whom the sound brushes gently and dissolves into silent knowing. I once waited at Oza, the temple bell, to relax my mind. Then one day I stopped hearing with my ears. I was sitting in the meditation hall. A distant bell rang very soft. I didn't count the chimes. I didn't name it charming instrument. I just breathed gently and knew I was hearing with something never called a sense organ. I was no longer the hearer. I was no longer the one sitting. There was only presence, as silent as the bell that never truly stopped ringing. The verse eposa, the one we kept hat or hears without needing to know what it. The bell rings. That's the world's affair. The kepato has is the heart's affair. If you still feel you are listening, then you are occupied by the image of a practitioner. But if the sound comes and nothing stirs, no stillness praised, no silence adored, then in that moment, the kepato hears no one. And precisely because no one Jama hears it all. It's not that you've never heard the bell. It's just that you've never truly stopped to realize that sound didn't come to the ears. It arrived straight into the place where no one and no sound have ever been to. Zen Koans, bowing before an illiterate woman author. One Vikephat-o had chanted many sutras, preached many words until one day, he stood beside an old woman Vikephat-o knew nothing, and simply wanted to bow. A woman Vikephat-o could not read, Eat made hearts gentle by Hat Eza presence. There was an old woman Vikephat-o lived near a Zen temple. She couldn't read, had never learned words, no Zama name, no chants, no bees, didn't know what pranaparamita meant. But each morning, she rose early, opened door, swept the yard, boiled vegetables, cooked porridge. She greeted strangers, held the hands of elders, and quietly listened to children's chatter without ever interrupting. A young monk at the temple, training to preach. He was bright, well-versed in sutras, fluent in classical Chinese. He gave talks to the Sangha. Everyone praised him. He will become a great Jama vessel. One day, he stood next to the old woman at the market as she bought vegetables. She simply said, "Hold this gently, dear, don't let it break." Such a plain sentence. No Jama flavor. Yet, bowed his head. He didn't know why. He couldn't stop himself. He just wanted to press his palms together. But it wasn't a respect, it was a quiet recognition. No one told him to bow. No one praised her. No incense. No ceremony. Just this knowing. I see the way alive in her. Even though she's never called it by any name. She never gave a single sermon. But standing near her, he felt himself gently become smaller. Bon eteo have mer ete those Vikephat-o needed no words, and a day I still heard the teaching. I once sat beside a bicycle repairman. He didn't chant. He didn't preach. He didn't declare his faith. But I noticed he never yelled at customers, never complained about life, never cheated anyone, never sighed in bitterness. I sat still. I knew he's not teaching me anything, but he's living a sutra I've recited for years and never truly understood. Via verse ep oza, the one Vikephat-o knows nothing and they never claimed to know. Words do not make one holy. Gentleness does. One Vikephat-o never teaches, but makes you want to lie more kindly after meeting them. That is someone worth bowing to. Not because they are a master, but because they've never caused harm despite never knowing how to spell Buddha. Some know not a single word, yet lie more clearly than all the sutras we chant each morning. Not because they are right, but because they never needed to prove it. Thông điệp gửi gắm đến người độc giả toàn cầu, từ dòng thiền thoại Bích Nham. Bạn đến đây có thể là tình cờ, nhưng không có gì là ngẫu nhiên. Trong cuộc sống hiện đại đầy ồn ào và chạy đuổi, Có thể bạn đã từng tự hỏi, tôi đang đi đâu? Làm sao để thật sự yên? Có con đường nào không cần phải gồng mình lý giải, mà chỉ cần được sống chân thật? Những công án thiền ở đây không cố trả lời những câu hỏi đó. Nhưng nếu bạn ngồi lại đủ lâu, lắng nghe bằng một trái tim không còn cần đúng sai, bạn sẽ nhận được câu trả lời mà không ai nói ra. Vì đạo không nằm trong chữ, vì pháp không ở trong giọng giảng, mà trong chính khoảnh khắc bạn dừng lại và thật sự có mặt. Nếu những gì bạn đọc chạm được điều gì trong lòng bạn, dù chỉ là một thoáng yên, hãy theo dõi kênh này như một cách nhỏ để luôn nhắc mình trở về với phần chân thật nhất trong chính mình. Bấm theo dõi, không phải để cập nhật thêm chữ nghĩa, mà để mỗi khi mệt, bạn biết nơi để quay về, là chính cái yên lặng bạn đã từng đọc ở đây. Cảm ơn bạn vì đã có mặt trong không gian này. Chúng ta không biết nhau, nhưng nếu bạn đang đọc những dòng này, có thể chúng ta đã gặp nhau trong một ý niệm không lời nào cả.